Our two favorite phrases are pick up the plow. So if it needs to be done, we just have to do it. And adapting.
Yep.
Adapting is huge, especially in 2023, trying to run a business with all these different tools. We have to adapt.
All right. Interesting question. What are we doing here? Why are we talking to this camera? Why do we have these mics in our face? Where are we right now? Nikki?
Well, we are in downtown Winder, where both Reade and I grew up. So we decided to get an office here. And then shortly after that, another office came available, and we said, wait a minute, we have been wanting to start our podcast, or restart it actually, because Reade was doing it a lot during COVID. But we said, this is a great opportunity for us to just share what we're doing. We get asked all the time, like, how do y'all work together? What do you do? We have several things going on. So it was just a great opportunity for us to sit down and kind of talk about what we're doing. Not to talk at you, but we love to see people's business grow. That's why we're in marketing. We help shout to the world what other people are doing. So we thought, what better way to do that than to share tips, tricks. But yeah, we're in downtown Winder, and this is our podcast studio. It's called Rogue Pine Studios. It's going to be booking soon. We're going to open it up to you. If you're local to us, come sit, chat. My mom and her widowed group want to come. So I just want it to be for everyone. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, we're really excited about this. We've been talking about this for a while. This is the most raw thing that we've ever done. We're going to talk a lot about the challenges of running a business, just in general. Also, what it's like.
Throw in a marriage. To
I know,
business.
right? Yeah, like we have two kids that are both really young. They're 8 and 5. So this is a crazy time in our lives. I'm coaching your team, momming 2 different teams right now, 2 different baseball teams. So how are we doing all of that? It ain't super graceful, but we're figuring it out, and we just want to share that and hopefully bring on some folks who can share some of their experiences as well, and hopefully everybody can learn something from that experience. All right, guys, I'm going to take you back a little bit to a couple of years ago when we had kind of hit a crossroads as a family and in the business. So some background, our kids who are 8 and 5, they were both getting into school age. The youngest was reaching school age. We knew that we wanted Nikki to be more involved in the business, but that began a process of figuring out what that actually looks like. Yeah. And we get this question a lot of, like, how do we work together? How do we figure out how to, not step on each other's toes? How do we maintain, that peace in the marriage and still be effective as a team in the business? So do you want to talk about, kind of your experience in doing that?
Yeah. So like Reade said, we were at that crossroad of, okay, our oldest is already in school. Our youngest is now approaching school age. What are we going to do? So we decided yes, like I wanted to do it. We were going to try it. And if anyone knows our youngest child, he needed to go to school. He loves it. He was just, that personality type. But so coming in, we had no idea how I was going to fit in this business. Reade's been an entrepreneur. Like, we had no idea. It's not like I came in and it was like, there's a seat for you and it's ready for you whenever you're ready. It was like, I have no idea what we're going to do. So
well, I just knew I needed help,
exactly.
Right? I knew there was more work to be done than I could do on my own. And that included like the management and the leadership and sales and things that we couldn't just give to, our team members that were specifically focused on task work.
Yeah. So when we decided to put our son in school, it was still important to me and Reade too, to still maintain this family culture at home. We knew bringing another entrepreneur in, it might get really hectic. So it was very, very important to us to still keep that family dynamic, which we did. I worked with Reade, 8 to 2, and I went and picked up the kids every day from school, and I still had kind of that life as well. Fast forward to right now, it looks different, and we'll get there in a little bit. But when I first walked in, for the first 6 months, I just shadowed. I followed Reade around, and I said, what are you doing? Is this something I can take? And poor Reade, he, as much as he wanted to delegate, not that he didn't trust me or anything, but how could I do something? How could I know how to do something? So you were afraid to just give it all to me.
Well, and delegation is a skill.
It is.
It's not something that comes
something I
easy.
struggle with.
I mean, this business is 10 years old. So it was just me in a room for 8 of those years. And so learning to, give some stuff and really valuable stuff. Again, like leadership level stuff. Give that to somebody else, even though it was my wife that I trusted, and I trust more than anything and anybody. That was something that I and only I ever did. So that was a skill, and that was a thing that we had to figure out. I had to learn to really trust and delegate, and she had to learn. Well, I mean, what did you learn from that?
Well, I would say the biggest thing was we had to learn how to talk to each other, because not just as husband and wife, but now as coworkers, if you will. So when I saw something, when he tried to give me something, and I was like, Reade, I don't agree with the way you're doing this. Is that even something I can say 6 months into this business? I did say it, and spoiler alert, you didn't take it well. You didn't take it well. And I mean, I was still trying to figure out, okay, well, why am I here if you don't want my help? I am just in our marriage, even I'm the more organized one. He's the born entrepreneur, like just goes at such a fast pace. Well, I'm the more organized one. So when he gave me something, I was like, oh, he clearly wants me to change this to the better. Well, it didn't always happen that way. So that was the first thing we had to learn. Okay, you can't just come in here and say, I'm doing all this wrong. This was his baby. Like, he built this thing. And even though I'm his wife, like, how could I come in here and say this to you and say, like, oh, this is not that I said this was crap, but hey, this is maybe not the most effective way to do this. I mean, spoiler alert again, I didn't say it like that. So there was many things that I had to learn. Okay. We said, okay, time out. Like, what are our rules? Because in any business, I don't care if you're an executive level. You go to the CEO and you say their stuff is crap, you're fired. Like, you wouldn't do that, right? And I did have to learn, because I get very high energy, and sometimes when I have ideas and I'm just flowing, sometimes I can be harsh. I know that's strange to say, but I can be harsh and saying, that's just wrong. And so we actually had to sit down one day and say, like, you have to say things to me like this. Your role is this. Nikki, I didn't ask for your opinion on this. Like, this is what I've been doing. Now, again, 6 months in the business, that was 100% right for him to say. Now, we do talk a little differently. We have learned things. It is still not perfect. We still don't have a perfect system.
Well, I think this is where the structure has really, really helped a lot. And we're still figuring this out, right? This is all what we're have experimented with and what we are currently working through. But I can say that doing things like a daily stand-up, where we get in front of the whiteboard, we put all of our priorities up there, we can dialogue about those a little bit, and then we prioritize those things together. We have a monthly.
That's just recent.
Yeah.
We just recently started.
Just a few months old.
Because we have such good ideas, and I know entrepreneurs, like, this is a thing. Like, you have so many good ideas, but implementing them, like, one, we don't have time. We didn't have time to introduce any new things. So we had to just do it. We had to say, nope, today we're going to start implementing this thing, which was the daily stand-up, and it's changed our business. And I feel like I've read a gajillion books that say, like, just do it, just start, just do this, but it really does work. But going back to our roles, like, we still don't have super defined roles, but we know, well, we don't have titles, I should say. We don't have defined titles. We do on paper in our business cards, but we have roles where this falls under my role, this falls under his role. And Reade has thankfully given me some authority to kind of roll with some stuff, because he just doesn't have time to do it. So I would say the biggest thing that we learned is we had to define our roles, but as a married couple, we do have a benefit, which we then later found out that it's actually a double-edged sword.
You're talking about the fact that we can talk about, we'll say, stuff to do with the kids' lunches, during the workday, and we can talk about, things that have to do with client work or whatever at 11 o'clock at night.
Which we do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think what we had to learn is where is the boundary? Because like last summer, we spent a lot of late nights planning and strategy planning. And I think that's so much fun. But then we were like, wait a minute, we haven't been on a date. Now our dates have, we love talking about the business because I'm passionate about it and obviously Reade's passionate about it. So it comes out. But sometimes we do have to say like, well, how's Reade doing? Like, how are you doing? Like, I have to not check my box, but I have to be diligent in saying, I'm still his wife. Like, I need to satisfy things as a wife. I need to be there for a mother. I need to be in the business, like where our roles are. And we say like, which hat am I in right now? Yeah. I have to view it through those lenses. Last week, one of our kids was sick. Like, okay, works well, but I no longer can just like stay at home with our kid. So we have to work around that, which works well because we are entrepreneurs, but
yeah, we do.
We work at late night.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a flexibility. This doesn't get talked about often enough, I think, that with that flexibility and with that greater flexibility that we have as a couple that's running the business, we can just work from home one day. Mm-hmm. But how does that change what needed to get done that day? I can pick up some tasks related to, we'll say, the household stuff or with the kids or whatever. She can do that. But what is the downstream impact of that? That means we might have to stay up later. We might have to make some sort of accommodations at a later point. Now, I think roles, critical. Structure, really, really important. What else do you think has helped us to like maintain that we'll say the quality of life and effectiveness at work?
I'd say the biggest thing that we haven't mentioned yet is just the hierarchy. Knowing CEO, knowing that overall decision makers, even I can be super bullish on some of my opinions. I'm a very opinionated person because I see the day-to-day. I think the integrators are more of those people. It's just who we are, is how my brain is functioned to see every detail. So therefore, I get nervous when Reade makes a decision. I'm like, but you didn't look at this detail. And he's like, but that doesn't matter. The overall picture matters. So I have to trust his judgment. And that hierarchy helps because I take it to a certain level and I pass the baton, and then I have to let it go. And that has been one of my struggles. But I would say the hierarchy is just knowing the roles, who is in those departments. And we tell our contractors this, like we have project managers, we have the head departments, basically, like the department heads, basically. And knowing the chain of command, knowing, like, just like the presidency, you don't have 16 people trying to make a decision. There's one decision maker. Now it's his team that helps him come up with that decision. And I think this year has been the biggest that we have succeeded, because I know if I present Reade with certain findings of mine, he will listen, for one. And he promises me that he won't just disregard my findings, because I can go in very deep into details. But I know I can confidently sit back and say, like, he is the overall decision maker.
Well, and this, I think, it's almost uncomfortable to say, especially when it's, when you're talking about a married couple running a business. You still need to have an executive in the business. And it makes sense in our business for that to be me, just because I've been doing this for a really long time. And that can be difficult. But it saves more discomfort and disagreement than it causes. And in our experience, what that allows is for her to just confidently and comfortably bring me her thinking on something. And like she said, she can trust me to really consider all the points and evaluate, but to keep from that analysis paralysis where we're both like unsure of what we should do or if we should actually take action, and also to avoid conflict, right? Because if there's somebody who's responsible for saying, this is, okay, we've talked about it, this is the decision, this is what we're going to go with, and then we we close that discussion, that thing we can move on from now, then that helps to keep from stagnation or arguments. So that is, I think that's a good point that you bring up. It's uncomfortable, but you got to have those conversations as early on as possible if you're working with your spouse. And to be honest with you, it's really, really important with any kind of business partner relationship, especially if it's, an equal partnership in terms of ownership of the business. And frankly, it's important even if it's not equal partnership. But when two people feel like, or if it's unclear on who's CEO, who's CFO, who's COO, those things need to be clarified as early as possible.
I agree with that. So to recap, roles, not necessarily titles. We'll get to titles, but
roles. Who does what?
Yes, and who's responsible for that thing. Yeah, and we still, we are changing constantly. We are adapting. We always say our two favorite phrases are pick up the plow. So if it needs to be done, we just have to do it. And adapting. Yep. Adapting is huge, especially in 2023, trying to run a business with all these different tools. We have to adapt.
All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. If you did, it would really mean a lot to us if you would like this video. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, and make sure to subscribe on the audio podcast platform of choice. That really helps us to be able to make more of this content, bring more value to you as our listener. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.